One of the hottest techniques all around the country, especially in the winter, right now, it's cold and pretty much everywhere in the country, is just a minnow bait on a jig head. My go-to is a greenfish tackle, bad little shad head, and a Zoom Super Fluke Junior. But the reason this bait's so effective is, number one, front-facing sonar is a great bait to cast out the fish you see suspended, and you kind of swim it, depending on the way of the head, swim it through the fish, swim it above them, give them come up and eat it. But it's really, really effective dropping vertical. And when you're dropping those fish, the way you want to present this bait is drop it above the fish, shake it real lightly, and let the fish come up and eat it. But, so when you're dropping it vertical, you want the bait to sit perfectly horizontal, like this. Not dangle tail down, not dangle up like this. You want it to dangle perfectly. And the way to make sure that happens is you have to use the appropriate jig head. You want a jig head with a 90-degree bend. What 90 degree means is you want the eye of the hook straight up, not 60 degrees pointed out. You want it straight up, because when you tie to that, it holds the bait level. If it's 60 degrees, it's gonna hang tail down like this. The other thing you want is a small hook. This is a 1/0 size hook. The reason you want that light, small hook is because if it's a 3 or 4/0 hook, or you just use your generic jig heads, the bait is gonna dangle down, the tail down, because that hook is too heavy compared to the head. A 1/4 ounce is kind of my go-to. I'll go up to 3/8 or even half if they're really, really deep, or sometimes if I'm throwing at those fish ahead of me, I'll use an 1/8 or a 3/16, a little bit lighter. But a 1/4 ounce is a good median. But the key is to make sure your line is coming straight up and down from that line tie. That is essential in it presenting effectively, especially when you're dropping it vertical. And every time you catch a fish or two, it'll tend to shift to where it's dangling like this, because it comes off the front of the eye. So when you catch a fish, check your line tie, make sure you pull it back to the top of that tie, and it will keep your bait hanging vertical all the time, which is the way they bite it better. So when it comes to fishing this minnow style bait on jig head, it's a unique bite. Any of the ice fishermen up north probably are real familiar with it, but when I take a lot of people that, you know, I fish with a lot on these spotted bass lakes that haven't used this bait a lot, it's hard for them to get the feel for it. So when you're fishing vertical, especially on a spotted bass lake, the bite is really, really unique. They're hard to hook, and it's hard to feel them actually get it. It's just a really light shaking presentation, and you kind of just lose weight on the bait. It just goes away. You don't really actually feel the bite, very rarely. And you want to hold it perfectly vertical for when you're dropping on those deep fish, and just light shakes. Just take the rod tip and barely jiggle it, just to get those fish to come up and look at it, and then they'll kind of just lift it up. You'll just lose weight on the bait. And so with that being said, you need the right setup to be able to feel those fish. I like kind of a shorter action rod normally for doing this, because if you're using a really, really long rod, you know, you get your rod out there 7.2, 7.3, it gets kind of hard to feel them. So I like a 610, 611 rod. I use a 610 in my Hartwell Magic spinning rod, and it keeps the bait, it kind of keeps everything closer to you. It gives you more control over that vertical presentation. You want light line, you know, 8-pound test, 10 at the most. I usually use 6 or 8-pound test with 10-pound Yozuri super braid. And that finesse setup, small rod, small line, all that just helps you feel those bites, those really, really light bites, so you can get that vertical hook set and hook them good and not shake them off. That's the hardest thing to not do, is accidentally shake it a couple more times after they eat it, because the bites are super, super light. But you want just a good light rod, light spinning reel, shorter action, and with a lot of tip. That's essential. You want some soft tip on it, so when they do load up, you can get that hook in them effectively.